What if a sixth grade math lesson could do a whole lot more than just teach data analysis? Today, we're diving into a curriculum that uses numbers to teach timeless principles for living a better life. It turns simple math into, believe it or not, a guide for wisdom.
It all kicks off with a question that feels, well, pretty universal, right? You look around and you see brilliant, highly educated people making choices that cause so much damage to themselves, to others. How does that even happen?
And the answer this material gives? It's direct and it's powerful. The core idea is that knowledge all by itself just isn't enough. If it's not guided by a strong moral compass, it can actually become a really destructive force. So that really gets to the heart of the problem identified in the source material, this potential split between having knowledge and having wisdom. The argument starts by asking if our modern systems are prioritizing being smart over being insightful. The thinking here is that an education system that's disconnected from a moral foundation, well, it produces really clever people. I mean, people who can innovate and solve incredibly complex problems. But they might be missing that internal piece, that wisdom, to use their knowledge for the greater good. Okay, so if that's the problem, what's the fix? Well, the source material lays out an alternative path. It's one that's aiming for something way more than just good grades. It's a path to what it calls life and peace. The solution on the table is an educational philosophy that deliberately weaves together academics with a very specific set of values. It threads principles from the Bible right into subjects like math and science. The goal isn't just to make a sharp mind, but to build a moral character.
And this whole philosophy is really built on this one Bible verse. The central idea is that if you align your mind with these spiritual truths, it can lead to a life of real substance and inner calm, which is proposed as a pretty stark contrast to all the anxiety and chaos we see today.
All right, now let's see how this actually works. This is where it gets really fascinating. We're going to break down a sixth grade math lesson on a topic called data variability. So, at its core, the math lesson is about something called data variability. It's really just a fancy way of talking about how much a set of numbers changes or stays the same. Simple enough, right? But let's see how this curriculum uses that simple idea to teach something way deeper. Our first example takes us all the way back to the story of Joseph in Egypt. Remember, during 7 years of amazing abundance, Joseph's job was to collect and store grain to get ready for a big famine that was on its way. You see, even with Joseph's super consistent plan to store grain, the actual amounts he collected were a little different each year. Real-world stuff like weather and harvest conditions meant the data was never perfectly the same. That's natural variability. So check this out. The lesson connects these two ideas. The math takeaway is that even in the best-laid plans, you're going to have some variability. The wisdom takeaway from Joseph's story is all about foresight, that you've got to prepare for an uncertain future, even when today feels abundant and totally stable. All right, next up, we see a totally different kind of variability. This example is about a shepherd who counts his flock of 100 sheep every single day without fail. For 3 days, everything is perfect. The data is totally consistent, 100 sheep. Predictable, but then, bam, an outside event like a wolf attack causes a sudden, sharp drop. The data changes in an instant. So the math lesson here? Outside events can create these sudden, sharp outliers in your data. But the wisdom lesson? Man, this one hits home. It teaches resilience. Life can feel consistent and predictable until all of a sudden it's not. The wisdom is about being prepared for a crisis that can show up without any warning. And for our last example, let's head to a farm. This one is about a farmer who's tracking his crop yield across different seasons, each with very different weather. The data here shows a crystal clear pattern. A low weather rating during a drought, you get a low crop yield. Perfect weather, you get a high yield. It demonstrates a direct link between the conditions and the outcome. From a math perspective, you're learning to spot patterns that show how conditions affect results. The wisdom lesson, though, is all about personal responsibility. The spiritual and mental conditions we create in our own lives are going to directly influence the results we get. So, what happens when you pull all 3 of these examples together? You start to realize this was never just about math, was it? This slide just lays it all out so perfectly. Every mathematical concept becomes a vehicle for a life principle. Joseph's variable data teaches foresight. The shepherd's sudden drop teaches resilience.
and the farmer's cause and effect data teaches responsibility. In this model, math actually becomes a language for understanding life.
And that's it. That is the ultimate goal of this whole philosophy. The purpose is not to create human calculators, but to use every single subject as a chance to build character and forge a moral foundation. And when you zoom out even further, you see that this one single lesson is just a small piece of a much, much bigger mission. The idea here isn't just to be a different kind of school. It's presented as a blueprint for transforming society. The core belief is that by raising kids with both knowledge and God-centered wisdom, it's possible to build individuals, families, and eventually whole societies that are grounded in integrity and peace. And that brings us full circle, right back to the beginning, but this time with the full verse. It presents a choice, doesn't it? A mindset that's only focused on the temporary, the material, the self. That's a path to destruction. But a mindset that's centered on timeless spiritual truths, well, that's the path to a life of true substance and lasting peace. It's definitely something to think about.